Welcome back to Liberty Marksman. I'm Scott, he's Ken, and today we're going to be talking to you about...
Does your Glock trigger suck like this one?
Well, we're going to show you how to step that game up a little bit from the original Glock perfection with some ZEV parts.
Yes. The best part about it is, this is a trigger upgrade that you can do for under 30 bucks.
This is the ZEV Race V4 connector. And we also have the ZEV, I think it's like a 3-pound spring kit. Their competition spring kit. Let's show them how to do this.
So before we get started pulling this apart, let's get a baseline. Shall we?
We shall.
£6, 7 ounces. Let's do that a couple more times. I always like to do 3 to get a good average. 6.05 ounces. 6 pounds.
6 pounds. Just do one more.
£6, 11 ounces. Alright, so let's strip this thing. Go back on your slide, pull down on your takedown lever, let go of the slide, pull the trigger, and that will release the slide. Plain and simple. Alright, so now that we have these separated, we're going to do the slide first, and then we'll come to the frame. In the frame, we have to change the connector and the trigger spring. And in the slide, we got to change the striker safety spring and the actual striker spring. Okay, so let's remove our recoil spring and our barrel. So the next thing we got to do is get our slide plate off. Okay, to get the slide plate off, we actually have to push down on here, which takes tension off the rear slide plate, and then it'll just push off like that. And then, that's easy. Your actual firing pin will come right out. Now that we got our back plate off, if you got a perinatal nose or one of these screwdrivers with a magnet on it, you can actually pull your extractor plunger out, and then we're going to go back to here. We have to remove the extractor and the safety plunger. This safety is what allows your handgun to fire when it's in battery. It depresses on this piece, and when I depress on it, it drops out the extractor. Pull that out. I'm using the magnet. Alright, so now that we got that out, it's got a spring on there, and this is the first spring we are going to change. Here's the replacement springs. They're a different color, which is nice, so you know if, oh shoot, which freaking spring did I just put in or drop? Don't know where the hell it goes. Well, a different color. These are dark. So the first spring we're going to change is this little guy. This one is for the safety plunger. This one is the actual firing pin spring, striker spring, and then this one is the trigger spring. This spring is a heavier spring. That spring actually, what it does is it assists on the pull of the trigger. So by making that heavier, it helps take some of the workload off of pulling the trigger. This one is going to lighten up how hard the primer is struck, but it's still going to be hard enough to ignite just about anything, and thus reducing the amount of effort needed to pull on the trigger. Same with the spring for the firing pin safety. By reducing the weight on that, it's less drag on the whole mechanism, lightening the overall trigger pull. So we're going to change this firing pin safety spring first. So you might have to give this a twist to get it out. We'll get rid of that one, and then the new one will go in. The new one will go in there. It might fall out. Sometimes they fall out. This one stays, so that's good. So we'll set that to the side till we go to assemble, and we're going to go next to the striker. You grab your firing pin, and you got this little tang here. So set that in front of your finger so when you push back on it, your pin won't want to travel up the tube. Take your spring, slide it on. Now push it in as far as you can and then grab it. Like so. That way you're open there. Now what I do is I set the one piece on top, and then I can grab the other one and put it up with my finger. And then let it go, and it's captured. Alright, let's put our spring and our safety plunger back in. Just be careful that your spring doesn't fall out of the plunger, because it can fall out and then sit across in the bottom of the pocket and really piss you the hell off when you can't get it depressed enough to get your extractor in. So then that goes in, your safety plunger is in, you have to depress that all the way down, and then you take your extractor and you'll see the round portion, you'll see exactly where it lines up in the slide, and you can let go, and now your extractor will not fall out. So now you take your extractor plunger assembly and go stick that in the hole. Stick it in the hole! Take your firing pin assembly, stick that in the hole, and then what you'll have to do here is you can peel it back with a screwdriver like you did before, but if you take your rear end plate and you can just push this in with your finger and work it down to that level. Alright, so once you get past the firing pin section, you got to depress the spring assembly for the extractor, and then you can press down on that and that snaps right in, and you are done with your upper slide springs. And just drop your barrel back in and a recoil spring. And now we can set our slide to the side, work on the frame and the trigger. Okay, now that we got the frame, we have to drop the trigger assembly out. There's 3 pins you got to take out. You have your locking block pin, you have your trigger pin, and then you have your rear assembly pin. So you can start wherever you want. We'll take the rear pin out first, just because that's where I'm at. And that literally just pushes right out. Alright, so next let's take the locking block pin out, and it should just push out pretty easy. You got that pin out. Now this pin here for your trigger, this can be a pain in the ass. Reason being is your slide lock is slightly larger than the pin, so it allows it to move like in an ellipse. And what that can do is that can actually lock your pin, because your pin has got, let's see if I can show you here, your pin has a step in it, and that can actually lock on that slide lock, and you're trying to tap on it and it just won't come out. So we will see if we can just push this pin out, and lo and behold, no. Alright, so the best way we have found to remove this pin if it's being stubborn and is not just pushing out is you grab your slide lock with your index finger and your thumb, and you just kind of use that to support the frame. It's going to sound goofy, but that allows you to, when it's laying in your palm, it'll take the tension off of it, and then you can just push that pin out with no effort. I didn't have to tap it or anything.
Easy breezy.
Take your tool and you just pry back, and your locking block will literally come right up. And then you can take your trigger, take your slide lock off, and then take your trigger, slide it up while pulling out the rear block. And that's it. That's your whole trigger assembly. Alright, to get this out, you just take the trigger and pull it this way and up and out. And then you can fold it over like this. So now that we have it here, you got to pay attention to the way your spring comes off. So your trigger piece, take this finger here and hold your spring down and roll your trigger off that spring like this. So once you have your trigger assembly removed from the rear trigger block, notice that your rear spring is open up and the other part of it is facing down. And everybody likes to use a reference, looks like an S. Sure. Now to get this spring off, literally all you have to do is push down and come up, and that spring will come off. So now you take your new spring and open hook down, literally just push it down and loop it in. That's it for that spring. We have to change the connector, and this is about one of the simplest things you will do. It just slides out, and that's it. Now you can take your new one and just put it in like that, and that's good and ready to go. Now that we have the connector installed, we got to go back to our spring and reconnect our trigger. So with your hook facing up, roll your trigger piece in there and rehook it like so. Now you can take and walk it around like so, your trigger, and you have to get in the pocket and just roll that in, and that's it. Dropped right in like nothing. Alright, now we can reinstall our trigger assembly into the frame, and just, that's pretty straightforward. Back goes straight down, make sure your trigger falls into the trigger pocket and push it all down. Now you take your locking block, and that'll drop in with no effort, and you can put in your pin, your locking block pin, and that'll just fall in. Now that the locking block is in, we can go ahead and put our rear pin in, and we can put our locking block pin in. And then you might have to take your tool just to make sure you get it in all the way into the recesses. Now we've got to put our slide stop lever back in, so that it goes down in that groove like that. Now if you try to put your pin in, you will see that if you look through the hole here, which you're not going to be able to see on camera, but oh yeah, you will. You want to make sure that that's clear, so you might have to move this around till it lines up perfectly. You also want to make sure that the spring is sitting against the locking block pin. And that's it. This frame is reassembled. Let's put the slide back on, get some pulls on this trigger. Put your slide back on, and let's get some pulls on this thing. What'd you get?
4.8. 4.1.
12 ounces. Almost 5. 4 pounds, 14 ounces.
So not too bad.
So we're averaging, come on, focus, in the 40s. Alright, so that's it. It's a huge improvement over the old trigger.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's got a really nice, crisp, clean break to it. And it doesn't feel anywhere near that 4 pounds.
Yeah,
it really doesn't.
It feels lighter than that. You know, with the stock trigger, you feel it come up to the wall and then break here, and it's real stiff once you come to the wall on the factory trigger. With this one, it seems to be a light pull pretty much all the way through. There's a little take up, you know, before you get to that, and then it's just smooth pretty much all the way through.
Yeah, it's a nice even pull.
I like it. You know, for $30 or less, it's the best upgrade I think you're going to find.
Yep.
You got to spend a lot more money to get a better trigger, because at the end of the day, it's still a Glock trigger. It's still got that plastic bottom, right?
Yeah. It's still.
You know what I mean? You know, obviously, it's still a
is...
Glock trigger, but it's still. I mean, let's face it. Love Glocks, hate Glocks. They still have that plasticky, spongy feel at the very bottom, right at the break.
Yeah, and I really don't think it helped with that. If anything else, it kind of gave it a little bit more of that feel.
Yeah.
But it just seems to be a crisper, cleaner break. It's not. You're not.
It breaks nice into the sponge.
Yeah, the sponge.
That's really the only way to put it. And it's smoother and lighter, so
hopefully it'll be more accurate.
that has nothing to do with accuracy. This has to do with creature comforts, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out on Facebook and Instagram.
Don't take liberty
For granted.
See you around, guys.